So this year you want to launch a new collection, but realistically speaking, what do you need to do and how long will this process take? If you want to learn more, I'm going to be breaking it down in this video for you, so keep watching. Welcome back to the Start Your Fashion Business channel. My name is Stephanie and I'm the host of this channel. If you are new around here, then I want to give you a warm welcome. If you want to learn about all things fashion business, then you have come to the right place. I'm a sustainable brand owner and an ethical garment producer and also a fashion business coach. I've been in the fashion industry for over 12 years and I started this channel because I want to share with you my experiences and my tips so that you can run your successful fashion business. So if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss any of my videos. So make sure to turn on the bell notification as well because I drop a new video every Saturday. And of course, if you want more fashion business tips, definitely check out my older content too and follow me on Instagram at Start Your Fashion Business. So in today's video, we're going to dive into the entire process of sampling and production and what that looks like and how much time you need to allow yourself because building a new brand or a new collection does not take overnight. And I've just been really alarmed because every time there's a potential client emailing my company, Towel Studio, they're only allowing themselves 2 months to launch a new collection, and that's really very unrealistic. So how much time do you really need to allow yourself, especially if you are brand new, you have never done a collection before, this is going to be your first launch ever, which is really exciting by the way, but it just also means that you need to allow yourself as much time as possible in case you're not really accustomed yet to the entire process and you're working with a new manufacturer. So this is a timeline that I've created so that you can see how much time you should actually allocate for this. Now, of course, this is really going to depend as well on how many pieces you're going to be launching. If the pieces are a little bit complicated, if you're doing a streetwear collection, things can generally happen much faster, especially if you are already using ready-made designs. But in this example, let's just say we're designing a complete custom collection of 8 to 12 pieces, maybe even a little bit more. Obviously in month 1 and even month 2, you might be doing your research, you will be designing, whether you're designing alone or with a designer. And of course, if you are creating a custom collection, then you must have your tech packs ready. And again, you could be doing this yourself or you could be hiring a technical designer to help you with this, but this is such an important process that you shouldn't skip at the beginning. So this process is going to take a month if you are working with a technical designer or even if you're doing it yourself. So you want to allow yourself as much time. So, this is already going to take month 1 and month 2 before you can actually dive into creating your samples. So in stage 2, what would typically happen is that you would be talking to manufacturers, sourcing your suppliers, and also looking into your fabrics and trims. Especially, if this is your first collection, you might want to do your own research first because you don't really have a manufacturer to rely on sourcing your fabrics and trims yet. So you really do want to come really, really prepared. Now, of course, you can do stage 2 and stage 1 simultaneously, but if you're not very experienced yet with the fabrics and the trims that are out there, then it could be a lot. So it's better to actually, take your time with this. So of course, if you're very diligent and you're working on this every day, you could actually do this much faster as well. So again, this is a timeline that's very, very conservative because I understand that, things can take time, especially if your fashion business is not your main business yet. So in stage 3, let's say you've already found your manufacturer and you're going to work with them. You're going to be sending your tech packs to them so that they can create the pattern blocks, the prototypes, and also start sampling. So at this point, you're going to want to, make sure all of the information is handed correctly to them because again, If your tech packs are incorrect, then your sampling process will take longer too. So the more correct that these files are and the more accurate your tech packs are, the better your samples will turn out. So sometimes you can even skip the prototype and go straight into creating a first sample. But again, if you are unsure yet of what fabrics you want to use, then you should definitely create a prototype first to perfect the fit and check out the construction. Now, typically after this is created, they would send it to you. So you would be receiving your samples, you would be doing your fitting, giving your feedback, and especially if you are working with an offshore manufacturer, which is completely normal by the way, you have to allow a shipping time in between because your samples will need to be sent to you, and this can take around 4 days. It can even take up to 2 weeks depending on what shipping courier you're going to be using. So of course, if you receive your samples and you have some revisions that you need to do, then you're basically going back to this stage and you're going to be perfecting it. So, you know, until it's perfect, you're going to be going back and forth here. And this can definitely take 1 to 2 months, sometimes even 3, depending on how many pieces you are creating. And one thing that you shouldn't forget when you are in this stage is to also think about your packaging and your labeling, because even when you have to create woven labels or do something custom, to create this sample can take 2 to 3 weeks. And again, if let's say they come to you and they're really not up to your standards, then you're going to have to resample that again, and that will also take additional time. So you definitely want to allow as much time between stage 3 and stage 4 because it's really, really crucial that you get your samples right, because you know, if you don't get it right, you cannot go into production. So let's say, you know, you've already finalized the fits, you know, don't right away go into production. Create one sample that is in the final fabric, in the final colorways, in the final print, perhaps even do a size run. Or let's say if you're doing a run between extra small and large, then make a sample in extra small and a sample in medium so that you can actually try it on and check the grading, because a pattern maker will actually not grade everything until you actually approve that pattern block. So, you know, this is also going to take time out of your production. But once everything looks good and then you approve it for production, then you can go into your TOP sample, which is basically a production sample. TOP stands for top of production, which means that the sample is pretty much what's coming out of your production run. So once you have your TOP sample, that's when things really get going in terms of production. And this can take anywhere from 4 weeks to 8 weeks, depending on your manufacturer, depending on how many pieces you are producing. So let's just calculate everything again. So as you can see here, month 1, you're designing, you're creating your tech packs, and perhaps in month 2, you're starting to source your suppliers and your manufacturers as well as your fabrics and trims as well. So when, you know, all goes well and all goes according to schedule, in month 2 or 3, you can start creating your pattern blocks and your prototypes and move forward with your sampling. And again, don't forget your packaging as well. This is really, really important. And hopefully once you receive your samples, there's not much revision to do, but hey, you know, nothing is perfect. You cannot create one sample and that's the perfect sample. So I'm sure you're going to have revisions, which means that your manufacturer will have to create another set of samples before you approve. And you shouldn't really be going into production until you have that perfect sample and have that approved so that they can create that TOP sample or the top of production sample. Now, once you have that, that's when you can really kick things into production. And again, production can take anywhere from 1 month to 2 months. So at this point, you guys are looking at about 6 months. So again, if you are looking to launch a brand this year, if you know, by the end of the year, you want to have your fashion brand up and running, then you need to at least start this process in the next month. Let's recap everything. If you look at this Google Doc, these are the questions that I want you to ask yourself. How many pieces are you doing? Of course, if you're doing 2 pieces, but that's not even a collection, it's not gonna take as long as when you're creating 12 or 15 pieces. But of course, you know, considering this is a collection, you're going to be at least doing 5 pieces. And if you think that doing 5 pieces is going to cut the timing in half, that's definitely not always the case, because there are certain procedures that are just going to take that much time. Now again, this is very applicable for a custom design collection. So if you're doing private label, or you're doing, direct to print business model where you're literally printing or embroidering on existing styles, then that turnaround time is much quicker. But if you're making a custom collection where you're really designing from scratch and using fabrics and trims that you have to research and source, then you need to allow yourself much more time. So how much time are you going to allow for sampling? You need to set this. Are you going to allow 1 or 2 months, or do you have 3 months? Obviously, the more time, the better, just in case, things go wrong, which things will probably go wrong at some point, whether it's with some trims that you cannot source, or perhaps you're dyeing your material and the color is not really what you want. So, this is just setbacks, but it's not the end of the world. However, if you are rushing, then it's not really going to benefit you. So you also need to ask your manufacturer, what is their usual sampling timeline? Because every manufacturer is different. Now, of course, they will tell you the world. They can tell you, oh, it's going to be done in like a week, and then it could take much longer. So you really want to double that time, if maybe even triple that time, just so that you're on the safe side. Now, do you need to source your own fabrics and trims and your packaging, or will your manufacturer do this? Because again, each manufacturer is different. A full package manufacturer will be able to do everything for you, but they still need your guidance. So even with packaging, it's going to take some time to create a sample of your hang tag, a sample of your woven label. Usually this can take around 3 weeks. So you don't necessarily want to go directly into creating all your hang tags without seeing an actual print sample or seeing how the woven label is going to turn out. Now, once you approve that sample, obviously you can order them, you can order as many as you need, but you cannot leave this to the very last minute, because when you start production, the manufacturer typically needs all of these things in-house, because they're not going to sometimes put the labels at the very end. Sometimes they need to put the label in the middle of production. So they need all of this, and you don't want this to delay your production outcome as well. So you have to have deadlines for everything and know when you need to approve everything by. So this is really important, and I suggest to make a checklist so you have a general overview, and then share this with your manufacturer as well, so they know what you're expecting. And you need to know when you need to have the stock in-house for your launch. So if you are launching, let's say in November, you might want to make sure that you have all your stock in October, especially if you're, shipping your own orders or working, with a warehouse and you have to set up everything logistically. You don't want to have your stock come late. So don't forget, you also need samples to do your photo shoot, because if you are launching your brand, you need to have images for your website, and these images have to be what you are selling. So you need to have that perfect sample, and this perfect sample needs to be shot not just for your product photography, but perhaps even for some preliminary marketing strategies as well. So make sure you know when you're planning to shoot all of this. And again, you need to do your marketing as soon as possible as well, because you want to put your brand out there, you want to have some content, and you need product for this. So guys, as you can see, it can take up to 6 months to actually launch a proper collection. So I really want you to allow yourself as much time as possible, because you don't want to rush this, and you definitely don't want to miss the boat. I've also explained in one of my earlier videos that you don't want to launch your brand just anytime. I mean, for instance, if you are a swimwear brand, you don't necessarily want to be launching a new collection or your first collection in December when it's, in the middle of winter, because of course not everyone is looking for swimwear pieces at that time. So you really want to synchronize everything. So I really hope that this video helped. Now, if you want my sampling and production timeline, make sure to join my free Facebook group. There's a link in the description box, and I will be sharing that sampling and production timeline there. So make sure to join that group, and make sure to follow me on Instagram too if you want daily fashion business tips. So again, thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know if you have any questions, drop them in the comments section below, and I will see you next week.